Hey Stencil fans, today we are going to show you how to sponge on the background of your project. All right, today's lesson is sponging on projects. A lot of times when we paint our wood signs, we put distressing or antiquing on the edges of both sides or all the way around it to bring the eye into the piece and to make it, you get your eye in there and it makes it the center focal point of interest. So that's why we do it. But today I'm going to show you how to do the same thing, but with a sponge. I've got a red background. I've got a project that we'll be releasing as we go, so you'll want to stay tuned for the different pieces of it. And we're going to use a sponge to do some sponging background effects. All sponges are not developed equally. Okay, so this is a sponge. Indeed, this is also a sponge. Honestly, this is also this kind of sponge, but if you notice here, this has got some long, straggly little arms. When that gets loaded with paint, that's going to like flop around. Okay, so that's my flop around move. So you can take a scissors, which I don't have right here, but you can just trim that to make it into the kind of sponge you want. If you've got something that's a little bit too tight, you can trim out pieces and give it a little haircut to make it into the one you want. I kind of cheat when I go to the big box store. And I look around when I'm looking in I will go through every one of the sponges and look for one that has just a really open shape with not too many long arms on it. So, and then this is too tight. You could mess it up if you wanted to, but this will not work. So not the same. Okay, when we're sponging, if you want to do the 1980s sponged wall effect, you would use your sponge dry and you would go into paint and you just go right on top of it and you'd make like some spongy pattern, okay? That's not what we're doing today. I know that you're all relieved. I'm going to show you how to sponge with some like shadowy faded look and stuff like that. Very first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna wet our sponge. I love this technique because you can work with a wet sponge, so you only need one really good sea sponge. I'm gonna wring that out. And one thing about sponging, if you have a very wet sponge, you're gonna get a very loose texture. If you have a very dry sponge, you're gonna get the 1980s wall sponging texture. So I like mine to be like damp wet, not moist wet. So I'm gonna step on my sponge inside, step on my flip-flop, inside a paper towel, and you can see that that really saturated that a lot. Okay, so that took a lot of the water out, and now it's just moist. And we call that foot-pounds of pressure, right? Okay, so in order to make the sponging more delicate and easy to look at, we're going to wet our foam brush, and I know that in our video on how to use the poly foam brush, we say don't wet the brush, but in this case, we want the background to be wet and carry things and move things around, so this is why we do that. And you can watch that video, it'll be linked above, okay? And it's a really cool video. And the thumbnail is adorable. Steve, good job. Okay, so I'm gonna wet the background again. I've got it base coated and dried, but now I'm gonna pick up a little bit more water. If you guys love what we're doing on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the page and then ring that bell so you get notified when we do this stuff. We love sharing DIY tips with you all. So I've got it nice and wet. And I should have prepared ahead and gotten out. This is kind of a purpley dark color. And I'm just gonna mix that in with my red. So I'll get my sponge wet with the red and then I'll dip it into that red color and just smooshing it around, getting it loaded into my brush. And this guy right here is long, so I pinched it underneath my fingers. This guy needs a little bit of grooming. Now we come near our edge, and I'm twisting and dancing around the edges. Okay. Now that's reading slightly purple to me, but I've got a trick, so I'll show you that in just a second. One thing I love about doing these videos is I always share all the tricks. Okay, so you're gonna be the one that knows the most stuff. I'm gonna put my brush into water And we're gonna get out regular black paint. And we're gonna go just a littler section. So I'll just pinch some of that back. Not afraid to get my hands all painty. Painter Patty, right? If you guys love stenciling, make sure you go to Studio R12 Stencils and check out, we have something like 6,000 titles. So there's something for everybody and something for every occasion. Okay, so we're gonna take that black and we are going to go ahead and sponge where the purple is, but not out away from where the purple is. So if you're not a random person, like if random makes you a little bit nervous, sometimes the looseness of this technique can make people a little bit nuts. But what's great about this, I'm going to show you a little secret about how to fix things in just a minute. So get that on there. Okay, so now I've got even everywhere, right? So now we'll take our base color, and this is how you would fix things if you didn't like what was going on. So I can take a different spot. I don't want the black spot because that's not gonna do what I want it to do. So I'm gonna take this spot that doesn't have very much paint, and I could wring this out and clean it and have a brand new clean brush too, but I don't wanna be bothered with that. I'd rather just wash my hands, right? Okay, so we're gonna put just the red. Now I can go, say I think that this is too sudden, I can go into just the red and I can soften that down and walk it in if I want to. And got a little bit of a glare going on here. I don't usually work on wet boards. Okay, if you get, like I got a blob right there, just go in and with the red. Okay, and then I think we'll even that out up here. And now I'm going to dry this and I'm going to show you what the finishing touches, and then you will have a perfectly wonderful sponged background technique. Okay, I've got my board dry, and now I'm going to use the sponge that you can't use for sponging. We're gonna get it wet, same technique. Gonna get it all squoze out. We're gonna step on it. I can't get my hands to squeeze tight enough, so putting it under my foot is much easier for me. And so what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna do the shoe shine hold. And if you've watched some of our other videos, I show you how to do that. I was an Air Force person and my dad was Army, so I didn't know how to shine a shoe. But you're gonna take your first finger in your paper towels, or you could actually do this with paper towels, by the way. But you're gonna push that down, and then with this thumb and that finger, you're gonna kind of squeeze and make a little channel for your finger. But that gives you this nice little concave area right here, and that is gonna be perfect for this technique. So with my shoe shine hold, blowing hippie noodles with the shoe shine hold right now, right? Okay, so we're gonna pick up just on the tip, just a little bit of the black paint. And then I'm gonna rub it on my board. I'm not gonna rub it all over my board. I'm just rubbing it in a strip. And then we're gonna come over here, and this part's wet and clean. This part has the paint. So it's gonna make a graduated fade around the edge, and it's really gonna bring the eye in. Let me go just around here and we'll compare the two sides. All right, got that dried. Look at the difference that little bit of sponging technique did to create that border of shadow and framing. You don't always need to add a wood frame to things to make them like have a frame. You can do it with sponging, you can do it with antiquing, you can do it with distressing, you can do it with colors, you can do it with tea towel stripes, you can do it with all the things. We have videos on all those things, so make sure you check out our channel. But I love this. If I wanted to go just a little bit further, I could just go with the black right in those corners and just really punch the corners up. If you went too far, you can totally take your sea sponge in your red color and you can go in and you could just sponge to soften everything. If you hate it, you can take your red paint, you could base it again and go at it one more time. You can just, it's always a layers game. You always have options. I hope you've enjoyed.